I'm happy to have you again on our YouTube channel. Yes, by the time you are watching this video, I know that you have the interest of finding yourself a vocational training in German. Don't mind. Watch this video until the end. You know the steps of finding yourself a vocational training in German. And this goes to mainly those ones who have been asking, how can I find myself a vocational training in German when I'm not living in German, when I'm not in a EU country? This is your video. Watch until the end. Today, Onyango is sharing with you the different steps.
So it's yet another time back online, of course, after such a very long time. I hope this video finds you all in good health and and I hope every one of you is really getting to kind of like enjoy the time, of course, regardless of how Corona is really affecting our movements and all that. So here I'm again back, you know, back on the topic that we've been mainly talking about, and that's still the topic of Ausbildung, or doing a training in Germany. And yeah, of course, in this case, we have around 4 things that we'll be talking about mainly. And that's about, or mainly looking at the documents that you really need for that. And first of all is getting your school living certificates recognized and translated by an official body or an official person. Secondly, applying for a vocational training online, and applying for a visa, and finally coming to Germany. So those are the things we mainly want to talk about today, and I will be kind of like also explaining a few fields for you then a bit in depth, and I hope this will really help you guys. Yeah. So as I said, first of all, like getting the school living certificates recognized and translated, I wanted to talk about that, and one would really talk about what you actually need. That's the first question we would really ask in this case, first of all. And for this, of course, you need your CV, a short written CV, of course, including a precise educational detail, And of course, you need your school living certificates, of course, in originals or also certified copies of it. And of course, one may really wonder about a certified copy. And in this case, of course, a certified copy has to be done by someone who is actually accepted by law to do recognitions of that, And of course, we will also talk about the school living certificates also getting translated into the German language. And for this, you could either send in your originals, but for purposes of security, you can just make a copy and make it get certified, And these things one can also actually do at the German embassy also in their respective countries. Yeah, and one may actually go ahead to ask him or herself why this is really needed. Of course, the school certificate of your country, needs to correspond with the German academic standards for you to be able to make your first move. And of course, this means they will be comparing, they will be looking at whether it's either Hauptschulabschluss or Realschulabschluss. But in most cases, of course, if you have already a Realschulabschluss, which is kind of like a real level, as in for those who come from Uganda, you would call it a senior 4 level of education, as in that is already a very nice level for you to already get started, or to be taken in for a vocational training. Yeah. And of course, this is also easier for the German companies, those places, of course, that offer you a place for your studies or the practical side of your studies. Also, want to use this as a way of assessing, your level of education, And of course, we will go on to where this could be done, for example, as in, I would say, of course, we have online, for example, at the certification authority in the respective federal state. being that Germany has different states and each state has its own government, it means each one of them, of course, has different laws concerning, in this case, of course, education, right? So you really have to get to them online and write to them and tell them what you really want to do with your certificates. Of course, it has to really be explained clearly, no? And yeah, you also need to visit the website called Anabin, which is ANABIN, to find out which department is responsible for the federal state you're interested in. Okay. And this normally takes it can cost you up to around 120 euros to process that document. Okay. So, and then we will go ahead on looking at, the application for a vocational training online. And for this you need, of course, application documents, including recognized school living certificates, as we talked about it before, of course. Yeah? And then with this, of course, you can also visit websites. There's a website called on Ausbildung.de. Okay, on Ausbildung.de is where you could go, and that is something that is kind of like availed to you free of charge. For that, you don't need to pay. Yeah, and we will go ahead to how one can apply for a visa. What you need to apply for a visa. In this case, we need a written confirmation by a training company, and it's actually better if you had a contract. But of course, also this written confirmation from the company of employment also, of course, shows the embassy how much interest, of course, they have in taking you in for a training, which is already good. But as I just said, like having a contract makes it even much better, because a contract states quite many things. It talks about your hours of work, for example. It talks about how much they will pay you during the training, and that's, for example, for those people who will be doing a training that pays, and yeah, and secondly, you will need sufficient money to make a living in Germany. When you're coming and you're doing, for example, a study, that is not paid for, in this case, you will need something between 650 to 700 euros a month. And this caters, of course, for your accommodation. That caters for your feeding. It caters also for your insurance, and kind of like transport fares, of course. That's what that money covers. And yeah, otherwise, in other words, one would really say, like, as it used to be, of course the law changed a bit, but people like the state, or the embassy normally needed you to present, an income of 8,000 euros, and this was looked at as security, of course, for you. It gave them the security that you had finances to actually manage your stay in Germany during the times of study and all that, and the 8,000 euros was then meant for a period of a whole year, broken down in those pieces of 650 euros to, Okay, then you will also need a valid health insurance by the time the vocational training starts, right? So, and one may wonder where that can be done, and of course, this can be done at the respective diplomatic mission or embassy or consulate. You also have to apply in person. The application process takes something like 3 months. And sometimes if you're lucky, of course, it can go a bit faster, but it's better really looking at it in a from a perspective of 3 months. That kind of like creates more room, of course, to work on these things and reducing on the anxiety. And of course, for the embassies, of course, you will need 60 euros to apply for this. And the 60 euros doesn't need to be brought, of course, in value of euros. You can also like get the equivalent of it in your national currency, to apply for this at the embassy. Yeah, but the embassy fees visa fees were also changed. That is one thing one could also look at. For the case of those people in Uganda, I don't remember so well, but as far as I can remember, it's around 78 euros currently in Uganda. Yeah. So you can try to check out, these informations you can also find online. And of course, yeah. And the diplomatic mission contacts then the foreign office in Germany, and this is meant for the simplification of organizing, of course, your papers or residence permit to stay in Germany. Okay, and the foreign office, of course, in Germany has then to approve. It has to approve your application. So because it then also really gets itself, it can also be that the office also gets in touch with your employer, of course, that is inviting you then to Germany. So that's also one of those things you also need to consider, So accuracy is really needed in this case, to just prevent disappointments. So one may ask about what kinds of visas one needs for this. And of course, first of all, I will look at there's one visa, as in meant for school-based vocational training. And for this, of course, you have permission. Like its permission is granted easily. Okay. And with this, you will receive a residence permit for the purpose of school-based vocational training. And that we call in the German language, of course, it's called Aufenthaltserlaubnis zum Zweck der schulischen Betriebsausbildung. Yeah, it's a bit it's kind of like a complicated word, but of course, yeah, this is how we call that here in Germany. And the second visa is called the dual vocational training visa. Okay, and that means here priority review in this case is really necessary. Okay, and for this you will need a residence permit for the purpose of your vocational education and training. So that's so far what I could really say about this. And and when that process is all completed, as I said before, it can take up to 3 months. When the 3 months are done, of course, you get your confirmation from the embassy in your country, and that way, yeah, you can set off to Germany and start your stuff here. Yeah, so I hope guys have helped you. Yeah, otherwise, if you have questions, please feel free to write to my colleague Otako. He will be telling you more, yeah? He will be telling you more about this, and we will still share more concerning this, right? Otherwise, I hope that was very helpful, and I wish you all guys the best.
Don't forget, subscribe, ring that bell so that you can get every video that we post so that you are updated on time. Choose, ciao.